on Daf Mem Hey Amid base at the bottom, 45b, and we just saw the question about whether Rabbi Yochanan follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says that there's a stricter interpretation of muktzah, that muktzah applies in muktzah machmas iser, and muktzah applies in muktzah machmas mius, and we brought a statement from Rabbi Yochanan that he does follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. However, we saw that the student of Rabbi Yochanan, when Rabbi Asi or Rabbi Ami came to when Rabbi Ami came to the house of it was in Sidon, and he didn't remove the candelabra from his garment. Rather, he pulled the garment out from under. And the Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish disagreed exactly how large of a candelabra would be considered a designated place and not have the concept of muktzah. And to which the Gemara said that Rabbi Yochanan said that we follow the opinion of Rabbi Shimon in regards to a ner, in regards to a small oil cup, oil candle, which in that case, we don't follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says that there's a muktzah machmas mius, that there's a muktzah on account of it being disgusting, and rather it's not going to be muktzah. But he does follow Rabbi Yehuda in all other muktzahs, and indeed there would be a muktzah on account of something having isur, having a prohibition. And that's where we're up to. The opinion of Rabbi Yochanan is that there is a stricter interpretation, like Rabbi Yehuda, of muktzah, but in regards to a ner that has oil, an earthenware vessel that have had oil in it, it's not going to be muktzah. Amalei Abayla Rav Yosef, second last line on Mem Hey Amud Beis. Amalei Abayla Rav Yosef, Arei kilas chasanim dadon kaveil and makam v'amar Shmuel mishum Rabbi Chia kilas chasanim mutal and toisa. You tell me that the reason that Rabbi Yochanan says that a large candelabra or even a small candelabra that can be held in one hand is going to have muktzah is because you designate a place for it. And that designation that you intend to keep it in one place and you put it in that place and it remains there makes it muktzah because you've set it away, and so it's not movable on Shabbos. It's not intended to be moved on Shabbos. Well, what about kilas chasanim? These were beds that had a post on the at the headboard and the footboard at the center point, and it would go up, and they'd have a curtain that would hang on an angle, and it came to a point, and it was a very narrow point where within 3 tefachim from the top, approximately 10 and 12 inches from the top, it didn't widen even 1 tefach, so it was a very steep and a narrow spread over the bed. And as such, that didn't count as having a cover. So you're not making a tent. You're not making, because it doesn't have a roof. So you're not making a tent in putting it up. And as such, the halacha is you're allowed to move it on Shabbos, even though that generally you set a place for it and that place remains. So even this chasanim, the adam kavela makam, it is the typical norm that people set a place for it, and nevertheless, Amashmul Rabbi Chia, in the name of Rabbi Chia, that kilas chasanim mutal and so mutal parka b'Shabbos, you're allowed to change its place, move it, lean it, and even take it apart on Shabbos.
So it's not being.
So we see that even though there is a set place, you can't that you can move it. Elam Abaye b'Shal Chulias says you're right. We're now talking about. We're not talking about a regular candelabra. We're talking a candelabra that is made up of attached limbs that you can put together and take apart. And the reason that it's muksa is not because you set its place. This is saying that the reason of muksa is because maybe you're going to take it apart. And if it falls, you're going to take it apart and put it back together again. And that's going to be a problem on Shabbos of bona, of constructing a vessel. Now, even though that there's a limit to what type of construction a vessel would be prohibited, this would be included.
Why is it so? What I didn't understand.
I cannot hear you, Michael. I think you're speaking. I cannot hear you.
You said it so that I can't.
No sound.
Yeah.
I'm hearing Michael okay. Maybe your audio. Can you hear me, Rabbi?
Everybody can hear me except you. So I think it's a setting that you've made it specifically a setting that you can't hear me.
All right, got you now.
All
right, I hear you. Go ahead. No, now you're muted.
I didn't understand with the Tfilas Chasanim why. I get it that it's not by definition an oil because why? Because the gag is not the top isn't wide enough, and it's like in sukkah, right? It's like the same
cover.
It's the same issue in sukkah, right? That
Correct.
You could put. Okay, but still, even though it doesn't count as, why isn't that binyan and stira? I don't understand. Just by definition, it's not binyan and stira, or
by definition, it isn't. It's an oil arai. It's a temporary tent, and if it doesn't have a top, it doesn't have a ceiling, it's not a tent. It's temporary. It's not permanent, and it doesn't have the ceiling, so it's missing the components.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We'll see plenty more about the arai as well. In any case, so the Gemara said, so the concern is not, as we first said, the reason is because you set a place for it, but rather we're afraid that it may fall, and since it's made up of limbs, it's going to fall apart, and you're going to put it back together. The shari, well, if that's the concern, what difference does it make if it's a large one or a small one? According to Shimon ben Lakish, he says, well, if I can hold it with one hand, then you're allowed to move it. If you cannot hold it with one hand, it needs two hands, then you have to, then it's muksa. Well, that makes sense if it's a concern about its size and you setting a place for it, and therefore, as soon as you set a place, it has a permanent place and it's muksa. But if you tell me that it has nothing to do with setting its place and it being in a permanent place, if the reason is based on it coming apart and you're building it together again, so who cares the size? So why would Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish make this distinction? The Gemara says no. He misunderstood what the answer was. Abaye didn't mean to say that it's actually made of limbs. My chulias ke'en chulias. This is a solid candelabra, a solid menorah, but the problem is that it looks like it has limbs. The isbechidki, because it has folds or crevices at the joints. So hilkach chulias being gedol being ketana asura. Of course, if it has an actual limbs and it's made of parts, of course it makes no difference of whether or not it's small or big. You can't carry them on Shabbos for fear that if it falls, it's gonna come apart. And you're gonna put it together again. However, gedola nami the isbechidki gzeira atu gedola the chulias, and a large one which has these crevices, which people think has limbs, and it looks like it's made of parts. There also you cannot carry it because of the large ones that have limbs. But kipligi bekatana, the machlokas is about the small ones. that don't have limbs, but look like they have limbs. Mar Sava Gazrinan, or Mar Sava Gazrinan, where there's a machlokes, whether you're also going to prohibit them on account of they look like the ones that have limbs. The large ones, because they're so large, are typically made of limbs, and therefore the ones that don't have limbs look like they would have, because that's the way you normally would make it. But small ones, which could be made as a solid piece, and this one is a solid piece. Do we also say that we're concerned that people will confuse them with the ones that have limbs, and if they see you carry this and they think it's made of limbs, they'll carry their own, which have limbs, and that's a gzeira atu, that we say don't carry these because they look too much like the ones that are prohibited, or not? And that's the machlokes on the small ones, which are not always made with limbs. But the large ones, which are made with limbs, everybody agrees, typically made with limbs, everybody agrees that even if it has it's not made as separate limbs, it's made as one solid piece, nevertheless, you should not carry them on Shabbos. Now the Gemara challenges, is Rabbi Yochanan following Rabbi Yehuda? Is that really true? Did Rabbi Yochanan say that? Rabbi Yochanan said, halachic kastam mishnah. As a general rule, we say that Rabbi Yochanan holds that if there's an unattributed mishnah, the halach is that way. Utanan, and yet we have a mishnah that we mentioned a couple of days ago that seems to follow Rabbi Shimon, because we learned muchani shala in a sedan, this box that people would be carried in. Bezmanshi nishmetes. So if the wheels come apart and come off of the box, ein chibur la, it's not counted as a part of the sedan. Ve'enim dedesima, and therefore it's not measured in it together with it in determining whether it's too large to be a vessel and susceptible to tumah. And it also won't be a part of the sedan in order to be a barrier above a grave. And you're not allowed to move these wheels if there's money on it. Wait. So that Mishnah, which says that you're not allowed to move it when there's money on it, indicates but if there's no money on it, I'm allowed to move it. And this is based on the opinion of Rabbi Shimon that we saw a few days ago, who limits muktzah to the time that it is muktzah, and does not say that midis katzai lebein hashmashas is katzai lekuli yoma, that since something was muktzah at the onset of Shabbos at bein hashmashas, for the duration of Shabbos it's going to be muktzah, and therefore it's possible that there were coins on the wheel before at bein hashmashas, and but it's off now, and therefore you're allowed to move it, and that's why it says you cannot move these the wheels if there's money on it. What we could say from there, deduce from there is, if there's no money on it right now, even if there was earlier, you can move the wheels. Even though at the onset of Shabbos there was the money, the coins were on the wheel. So we see that Rabbi Yochanan follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, and not Rabbi Yehuda. So we have Stam Mishnah, an unattributed Mishnah that goes like Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Yochanan says you follow the Stam Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Zera tehei Mishnah seinu shahaya shaloya le'amein mois kol bein hashmashos. That actually we're going to interpret the Mishnah there in regards to the wheels of the sedan, the muchani, to say that it's talking about that it wasn't when the Mishnah says that doesn't have coins on it, it doesn't mean it doesn't presently have coins on it. It means it didn't have coins on it at the time of Bein Hashmashos, at the onset of Shabbos. So the Mishnah says you cannot move these wheels if there is coins on it, meaning if there were coins on it at the onset of Shabbos, which is the defining factor. And even though it's not the simple reading of the Mishnah, not to have a broken words of Rabbi Yochanan, not to break the words of Rabbi Yochanan, meaning not to have a contradiction. Because he says a general rule, we follow the opinion of the unattributed opinion of the Mishnah. And we have we know that Rabbi Yochanan, we have this testimony from the students of Rabbi Yochanan that say that Rabbi Yochanan followed Rabbi Yehuda. Well, that's a contradiction. So in order to not have that contradiction, we're going to interpret the line that says, if there are no coins on it, you can move the wheels. If there are coins on it, you cannot move the wheels, to mean if there are no coins on it at the onset of Shabbos. Well, Rebbe once went to visit the Yuspura, and he testifies that when he was there, Rebbe said the halacha is, in regards to candelabra, like Rabbi Shimon in regards to a ner, a candle, which Rabbi Shimon says is not muksa once the candle is no longer alight. The fire is extinguished, you can move the candle. So too, it seems like the meaning was that he said the same about a candelabra. But the Gemara questions that. Did he follow the opinion of Rabbi Shimon in regards to the candle? Sorry. Did he follow the opinion of Rabbi Shimon in regards to a candle, and applied that to the candelabra, and that would be a leniency? And he said it's mutter. Or Dilma herbenarily surah, or it's two separate statements. He ruled in regards to the candelabra, meaning that it was prohibited. And he ruled like Rabbi Shimon in regards to the candle, and that would be in concurrence with Rabbi Yochanan. And that would mean that he was lenient on the candle, and that could be that there's no muksa machmas mius, that the disgusting cup that had been used already is not going to be usable. Nevertheless, it's not going to be muksa. Or that he says that as soon as the candle was out, you're allowed to move it. Teku, the Gemara does not know the meaning. It says, Eliyahu will tell us the answer. From Malkia, another story of one of the Chachamim going to another place. Or Malkia iklu lebei Rab Shemlai, betiltel shraga. He came to the house of Rab Shemlai, and there he moved a candle after it had been extinguished. Rabbi Shemlai was upset at him. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina. Similarly, Rabbi Yosef of the Kollel, he came to the house of Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina, and he also tiltil shraga. He followed the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Once the candle was went out, he moved it. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina was upset. So why are you doing that? Rabbi Abo ki ikla aser Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Abo, when he came to the place of Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Shua Levi, have a metalto shraga, he would carry his candle. However, when he came to the place of Rabbi Yochanan, have a metalto shraga. He didn't carry. He came through where Rabbi Yochanan was. He didn't carry the candle after the flame was extinguished. Amar says, well, what's his opinion? Why is he doing it differently in different places? Manafshach. If he follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, let him follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda and consider it muktzah in both places. Rabbi Shimon, and if he follows the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon, let him follow Rabbi Shimon in both places and say that he's allowed to move it. Rabbi Shimon severely. So Gemara says no, he did follow the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, and that's what he held. However, when he came to the city of Rabbi Yochanan, he didn't do it in his city because he didn't want to go contradict Rabbi Yochanan, who followed Rabbi Yehuda and was strict in regards to the candle. Said once it was lit on Shabbos, you cannot move it. And he didn't want to break that in Rabbi Yochanan's town, and so therefore he didn't do it. And that's to contradict. That's in contradistinction with the previous Chachamim who came to as guests to other places and follow the leniency of Rabbi Shimon, even though that their host did not. I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Shraga the Mishka Shari Limital, the Tiltuli. These candles that had oil in it, those are permissible to be used. However, the nefta asur l'taltal. If what you lit in it was neft, which had a very foul odor, it's sort of like a turpentine. Those candles, even if it's not lit, you cannot move those because those are really foul smelling. And so there's a muktzah on that. However, Rabbi and Yosef both say no distinction. If it's not lit, then you're allowed to move it, and it doesn't make a difference that it's foul smelling. Rav Avia came as a guest to Rava's house. His legs were muddy. His feet were muddy. And yet he sat down on Rava's couch, and the couch got dirty from his muddy boots. Ikbid Rava was upset by that. So Rava started asking him questions in an effort to out of frustration, the way he was carelessly sitting on his couch. Rava started asking him questions on halacha, sort of to stump him. Amalei, my time Rabbi Rav Yosef. What's the reason that Rabbi Rav Yosef say that they both say that you can move a candle even if this foul smelling fuel was used for the candle? Amar Leisi responded, says, well, because even though you're not going to drink from it on Shabbos, but you can do other things with it. You can cover vessels with it. You can use it as a paperweight. There are things around the house you can do with it, such as covering a vessel. You lost the cap to the jug. You can take the candle and put it on there. And you can put the nair on there. So he challenged him. He said, that's not a good reason. Everything that can be used as a cover for a jug is non-muksa. Is that really the case? Elamiyata, if that's the case, called Sarura Shabbat Metaltalin, then every rock, every pebble in your courtyard should be usable, because you can take it and bring it into the house and use it as a jug cover. Because you cover a vessel. Amalei Ikateris Kollel says, no, you're comparing two things. The nair, the cup that the oil is in, that the fuel was in, the neft was in, it's true, you wouldn't want to drink out of that. It has a foul odor, but it is a vessel. It's just not usable for anything else other than for the candle. And so now that it's not a candle, it's not going to be muktzah, because I have some other use as well, even though the primary use is not something I have. I'm not going to use it for many other things, but I have another use, and it is a valid vessel. Hani lekateres clearly, but rocks and pebbles in your courtyard, in your backyard, that doesn't have a status of a vessel. It's a non-entity as far as Shabbos goes. Mila Tanya, didn't we learn similarly? Shirayim, and now we turn to Mem Vavam Beis. Shirayim and Azamim, Ashirim and Azamim, different jewelry, which the vatabos and rings. Even though that we'll see later, there are a list of jewelry that one may not carry outside, may not wear outside of a place that into a public domain, a place that you're not allowed to carry, on account of that people would tend to take them off and show them to their friends, and they're going to come to carry it. So things that typically come off, you're not allowed to, are taken off. You're not allowed to carry. You're not allowed to wear. Nevertheless, in your courtyard where you're allowed to carry, you're allowed to move them, and they're not considered muksa. And we don't say that it's a vessel that's prohibited. And as a vessel that's prohibited, it's muksa. Muksa machma, Tosa says, shemalachton le'iser. The typical usage of this has a prohibition. You can't wear it outside. Nevertheless, you're allowed to carry it in your courtyard. V'amar Ula, and Ula explained matam. What's the reason you can carry it in the courtyard? Because it has proper uses. It is a vessel, and even though that the typical use is to wear it as a necklace or a bracelet or whatever, but it's a vessel, and as a vessel, since it has a permissible use, and it is a vessel, you're allowed to move it. Hachanami, so to here, since it is a vessel, it's a cup for your fuel for the candle, and even though you'd never drink out of it and you wouldn't use it at your table, there are other uses. You can use it to cover a jug, and it is primarily a vessel. The combination of the two makes it that you're allowed to move it on Shabbos.
I thought vessel had to have some like minimum ibud to it.
Some minimum what?
Ibud to it.
What do you mean? Ibud.
There's in Beya, so it talks about like a flat piece of clay that they made flat, that you could use it for a primitive plate. That would be the minimum, requirement to call it a keli. They discuss whether that's a keli or not. There's a piece of clay. It's just raw clay that they flattened out. So I thought from that a keli had to have some. You can't just say, well, that's a stone, that's a kli, because I could put it on top of a jug.
No, not the stone. I'm sorry. The stone is not a vessel. That's the distinction he's making.
Right.
The candle, the cup that holds the neft, that is a vessel. And that's the distinction he's making. Correct. A stone is not a vessel. A stone is not a vessel. And that's the distinction he's saying. He asked him, you're saying the reason why it's not muksa to move this empty cup that was used for neft as a fuel of your candle. The reason you're allowed to move this in there is because even though that I wouldn't use it for anything else on Shabbos, it's pretty foul smelling. But nevertheless, I can use it to cover a jug. So, well, I can use rocks as well. To that, he made the distinction, said, no, rocks are not a vessel. The cup is a vessel. So therefore, anything that's a vessel, you're allowed to move because it has a use, and it's a vessel primarily. The rocks are not a vessel, and therefore, unless you've designated it before Shabbos, it is essentially a non-vessel, and you can use it.
So I could use a hammer for a doorstop.
Correct. That's a kalisha malachta le'iser that you're using for a proper usage. Here he's saying one step more, that it's not really a kalisha malachta le'iser necessarily because it has another use. Amar Nachman ben Yitzchak, Brich Rachmana del Kasifei Rava l'Ravavia. Thank God that even though Rava was upset at Ravavia, his guest, and he asked him a bunch of questions, thankfully he was able to answer the questions so that he didn't become embarrassed. Ramile Abaye l'Rabba. Rabba asked a question. Abaye asked a question of Rabba, his teacher. Tanya, we learn that the remaining oil after the candle is extinguished, the remaining oil in the candle, or the oil that dripped out and is in a bowl beneath it, the Tanakama, Rabbi Yehuda says it's prohibited, and Rabbi Shimon says it's permissible. You're allowed to use it. Alma, Rabbi Shimon, Leslie Muktzah. So we see that Rabbi Shimon does not hold of muktzah in the strictest sense, in this broad sense. Alma, Rabbi Shimon, Leslie Muktzah. For a minute, we have a contradiction. Rabbi Shimon, so this comes to the halachas of Bechor. A little bit of an introduction. The Torah says that the firstborn of your cattle, the firstborn of your flock, goes to the Kohen. However, if it has a blemish, then it can be eaten by non-Kohen as well. And what's defined as a blemish? A permanent blemish. So you need a Kohen to determine whether or not this is a blemish or not. So you need a Chacham to determine it. Before Yantif, you had a firstborn calf born. It's very nice, but you have to, it's a Bechor, you have to give it to a Kohen. On Yantif, you notice that it actually has a blemish. And now, you want to shecht it for Yantif? Say no, since it's not edible to you before Yantif, because you had no idea that it had a blemish, and so therefore you didn't expect to be able to eat from it. Therefore, it is not considered prepared. It's not prepared for Yantif. It's not available to you. It's a muktzah. So Rabbi Shimon says, "Kol she'ein muma nikem erev Yantif." If you did not recognize and notice that it had a blemish prior to Yantif, ein ze min hamuchan. This is not something that you're allowed to shecht and eat on Yantif because it wasn't prepared for you. Gemara says, so we see that he holds that something that's not available to you is a muktzah. Yet the candle, where the oil was not available at the onset of Shabbos because it was servicing the mitzvah, the candle. It was the fuel of your Shabbos candles. And yet, once the candle's out, you can go ahead and use the oil. Which one is it? At the onset of Shabbos, the oil is not available. Yet you say that once the fire is out, it's available to you. At the onset of Yantif, the calf was not available to you because you didn't know it had a muksa, so you thought it was a saramum, so you thought it was a bechor. Yet, once you find the blemish, it does not become available. What's the distinction? Where it says, how can you compare the two? Hasam, in our case, which really should be hacha here. In our case, Adam Yoshev Matzape, Emasai Tikava Nero. Here, people light the candle with a sense of that at some point the candle is going to go out, and I don't need the light for that long, and I hope it goes out at some point that I can take the remaining olive oil and use it. So a person knows it's going to go out and is waiting for that to happen. He didn't put in enough oil for the rest of Shabbos. And in fact, earlier we saw, if you had these pamot, a larger cup, kosas and ka'aros and ashashis, these larger lamps that had you put in enough oil fuel with the intent that it would last for the rest of Shabbos. Indeed, Rabbi Shimon said that would be muktzah. So over here, we're talking about a specific case where the typical case where it's meant to last a couple of hours. So you know it's going to be extinguished on Shabbos, so you're waiting for that to happen. But in regards to a bechor of his flock, there he's going to say, if he's thinking, oh, there's going to be a blemish? No, because there are many things that have to happen. And even though Tues says that even one of these doubts is sufficient to make the doubt, but there are many doubts. First of all, Meimer Amar, because he says, who says it'll get a blemish. And even if it were to get a blemish, who says that blemish would be a permanent blemish, which would make it non-viable as a bechor. And even if it did get a blemish that is permanent, who says I'll find the chacham that's going to come to my house and check out the blemish to be able to rule for me that I'm allowed to shecht it, that it is no longer something I have to give to Kohen. So in any case, he's not expecting this to happen, and as such, not awaiting the permissibility of the usage of this animal, and that's the distinction. The concept, according to Rabbi Shimon, even if something is non-usable at the onset of Shabbos, it's the expectation that it will become usable throughout Shabbos sometime. And as such, he's waiting for that opportunity. And so it's never really set aside. It's never really set aside at the onset of Shabbos. It's not a muktzah. And the concept, as we said, was that, according to Rabbi Shimon, he does have a limited muktzah in that it's huktzah b'yadayim, where you set it aside actively, and in the duration of that time, it's not really usable for you. But if you know that it's going to become usable on Shabbos, and you're waiting for that opportunity to happen, even though that it will be muktzah at the time that it's not usable, such as while the candle is alight, when there's a flame there, Rabbi Shimon agrees that that's going to be muktzah, and we'll see a little bit about that in a moment. But once the light is gone, once it's no longer lit, now you can use the oil because you're intending for that and you anticipate for that. So even though you lit the candle, which actively makes it non-usable for Shabbos, so you set it aside. And during the duration that it's set aside, it's going to be muktzah. You cannot take any oil from there. Nevertheless, since you're anticipating that the fire is going to go out, and you're anticipating that during Shabbos at some point it will become usable again, your haktzah, you're setting it aside for Shabbos and saying, I'm not going to use this for the rest of Shabbos, is only a temporary thing. You're not saying for the rest of Shabbos. You're saying, I'm setting it aside for a part of Shabbos, but then I intend to use whatever remains at whatever point that becomes available. Oh, there Rabbi Shimon says it's not a muktzah. Whereas in the Bechar, in the firstborn animal, he has no reason to think that at some point during Yom Tov it will become available, and as such, it actually is set aside for the rest of Yom Tov, and therefore it's Eina min hamuchan. It's not going to be a muktzah. It will be muktzah.
So the sugya the sugya with the simukim and the grogros, that in the morning they were edible and then they became mos, and then by evening they became edible again. So that's sort of like the same. If you were an expert on dried fruit and you knew by Shalosh Shudas I'm going to be eating, dried figs, then it would not be muktzah. Is that right?
That's what it seems with the
Rabbi Shimon.
That if you know and anticipate in the middle of Shabbos that it will be available for you, that's not going to be muktzah. Now, I don't think that's true with the raisins. I think they take longer than that, and you don't really know how long it'll take, depending on how much sun you get and clouds and so on. So you can't really anticipate that, and that's really the distinction. But the concept is correct. When you do haktzah, but you intend that at some point it'll be available, that's what Reb Shimon says would be okay.
I've talked to Iraqis about what it's like there in the summer. Could happen.
Sorry?
I said, I've talked to Iraqis about what it's like there in the summer. It could happen.
It could dry out in a few hours. Okay. Sounds exciting. So what we said is that the reason he doesn't anticipate that the Bechor will be available is because one of the factors is, who says I'm going to get a Chacham to come and rule on me on this for me? So the Gemara challenges that. Now, as I mentioned, Tues says that you don't need all three of these doubts. I don't know if it'll get a blemish, and even if it gets a blemish, who says it'll be a permanent blemish, and even if it has a permanent blemish, who says that we'll get a Chacham to rule on it. So to that he says, Tues says any one of these doubts is enough to say that he doesn't anticipate the availability of the animal, and therefore it's going to be muktzah. So the one point was made was that I don't know if a Chacham will come and rule for me. So we have a contradiction to that. Masav Rami Bar Chama. We know that if somebody takes an oath or a neder, a prohibition, and verbalizes it, that they can undo it, and it can be nullified. So a woman takes an oath, her husband can nullify it, and as the Gemara is going to say, because she wants to make sure that he's okay with the oath. And so the Torah says that he can nullify it, and a Chacham can nullify it. You can go to Chacham and you have a Pesach, and you say, look, I didn't know, or I didn't. If I had known A, B, or C, then I would not have made the oath or the neder, and they can nullify it. So Masav Rami Bar Chama. mefirin adarim b'Shabbos. He says you're allowed to. The husband can nullify his wife's oath on Shabbos. V'nishalan adarim shalem. V'nishalan l'nadarim. You can also go ask a chacham to nullify it. They're called hatara and hafara. Hafara is when a husband does it. Hatara when a chacham does it. So in any case, these vows and oaths can be nullified. L'tzorach Shabbos, if they're in the need of Shabbos. So for instance, if she said, I'm not eating the Shabbos, and with in a language of oath, that can be nullified on Shabbos. Va'amai, leima miyemedem ezdakil labal. Even if it's nullified, once she said, I'm not going to eat on the Shabbos, the food is muktzah to her, it has no use. And at the onset of Shabbos, it was muktzah. And even though that it could be nullified, who says that it'll get nullified? And we should say, just as we said over there, in regards to the Bechor, who says you're going to find the Chacham that's going to come and nullify it for you and rule it for you? Well, the same over here. Who says that the husband's going to nullify it or the Chacham will? So the Gemara says, no. Hasam, because Rabbi Pinchas Mishmei de Rava. That's not a question, because she knows she's going to discuss it with her husband. That's every oath she makes. She's thinking, what will my husband think about it? The Amar Pinchas Mishmei de Rava, as Rabbi Pinchas said in the name of Rava, KollelEderes al das Baalei Nederes. When she makes the oath, it's with the intent of him affirming it or disavowing. But the problem is that it's not only her husband. What about the Chacham? It also says in the Brisa, that you can go to the Chacham and have the Chacham annul it. There, who says that you'll have a Chacham available and that it'll do it for you. So the items that were vowed against, the vow was on, should be muktzah. And therefore, even if the vow does become annulled, but you can't touch the items because the items are going to be muktzah because at the onset of Shabbos they were not available for you. So Gemara says no. Nevertheless, it's not muktzah because you don't need a chacham. You don't need an actual expert in the field because sagile begim al dietis. We know that even if you don't have an expert, a dayan, to rule and annul the vow, you can use 3 non-experts, 3 regular people. You can use an amateur based in, as it were, to annul a vow. But in regards to ruling of whether something's a blemish or not, that's not just the statement of annulment. That's actually, you need an expert in the field of Bechor who knows the animals and can rule in the very specific field of whether or not something's a blemish, that's a permanent blemish, enough that it'll make the Bechor animal available to you. That, who says you're going to find an expert that's willing to come to your house to rule? So that is a much more difficult thing. The annulment of vows, you think that's going to be available to you. The annulment, the ruling on a Bechor is not available. Ramele Abai Rav Yosef, Miyam Rav Shimon Kafsa Mutal Lataltala. So Rabbi Abai asked Rav Yosef, did Rabbi Shimon say that once the candle is no longer a light, you can use the oil, which says Kafsa in like Kafsa light? What's the reason that only when it's already extinguished? My timer. What's the reason? Dilma bahadi denakid lakavsa. You can't move it while the candle is lit. So we said earlier, and the Gemara is making the assumption here that we made all along. The reason is because you can't handle. You're not allowed to move a candle that's lit because maybe as you're moving it. Bahadi denakitla, while you're moving it, kafsa, the candle, the light will be extinguished. So Gemara says, so what? We see that Rabbi Shimon says that anytime you have something that's not intended on Shabbos, that's permissible. Because Meleches Machshavas Asar Torah, we know that the only prohibition on Shabbos is something that you intend to do. And here you have no intention to extinguish the flame. In fact, you want it. Notani, as we learned, Rabbi Shimon Adam Mita Kis of a Safsel, the classic case of an unintended action. You're pulling a bench, you're pulling a chair, and you're allowed to do so, even though it's in your backyard, and you're making a furrow as it goes. Since it's not absolutely going to happen, it's considered an unintended consequence of the main action you're doing, which is pulling the table. As long as you're not intending to create the furrow, it's going to be permissible. So the Gemara says, no, there's a distinction. When you're intending, it's a biblical prohibition, such as over here. If you intend to extinguish the flame, that'll be biblical. Therefore, when you don't intend, also Rabbi Shimon says, hey, don't do it, even though that's not going to be a biblical prohibition if you didn't intend it. But nevertheless, don't do it because it's hard to know what's intent and what's not. That's in the mind. The action's the same. But even if you intend, it's only going to be a rabbinic prohibition because it's not, even when you do it, it's not the correct way. If you didn't intend, it's going to be a rabbinic prohibition, and there isn't even a rabbinic prohibition. Tomorrow we'll continue. We'll repeat this last line. We're out of time to make this distinction clear of where something is a d'Rabbanan d'Oraisa without intent. And then we'll go on.